Did you know that you have an animus? An animus. Do you know what animus is? It's the Latin word for soul. And do you know that if you have a big animus, you are magnanimous? Do you see how that works? And if you have a small soul, you're pusillanimous. Can you say pusillanimous? Let's say it. Yeah, I want you to know that word. Okay? We know magnanimous, don't we? But not so much pusillanimous. Pusillanimous means you have a small, shriveled soul. Now, we're in the middle of a sermon series on holiness. And what I want to get across to you this evening is that a holy soul is a magnanimous soul. Okay? Holiness. What does it look like? It's to have a big soul. Well, let's start with the Old Testament reading. I love this. Moses is at the end of his rope dealing with the people of Israel. And so God said, okay, you choose 70 men from the congregation. 70 is an important number because what that does is symbolizes the totality. See, God always has a totality in mind, okay? So he chooses 70 to represent the whole, to go outside the camp, right? And there they will receive a portion of Moses' spirit. And that they'll be able to help Moses lead the people. Now, they do this. But there are two men, Medad and Eldad. Don't you like that, those names? Medad and Eldad. And for some reason, the text doesn't tell us, they didn't go out with the 70. I mean, this is a big deal. I mean, God's commanding Moses to tell the 70, go out. This is a big deal. We're going to rule this nation, and, don't miss this appointment, right? We have no idea why they missed the appointment. I thought about this for years, and I don't have a clue why that might be. Sometimes I think, well, maybe they're being a little rebellious. But then lately I'm thinking that, hey, in a group of 70 people, there's always a couple of guys that just doesn't get it right. It slipped away from them. Their alarm clock didn't go off. Maybe they partied too much the night before. I don't know, but they did not show up. And so, what did Moses do? Well, someone came and said that Eldad and Medad weren't there, and Joshua said, hey, stop them from prophesying because the Spirit of God came upon them just like the 70. And do you know what he said? He said, hey, this is a good deal, okay? As a matter of fact, I wish that the Spirit of God fell on everybody, no matter where they are. That's being magnanimous, isn't it? I mean, I'm glad for that because I could see myself being Eldad or Medad. Have you ever missed the boat? Rules are good. They keep us from falling into chaos, right? And sometimes we just don't make it, do we? And yet the Spirit of God still falls upon. God is magnanimous. Moses is magnanimous. Now, we have in the gospel something very similar to this. There's this dude out here, and he's actually healing and exorcising demons successfully in the name of Jesus. And his disciples don't like that. He's not one of the boys, okay? I think the disciples had what I might call a club. We're in the club, right? This guy's out of the club. You know, Jesus does not have a club mentality in this thing at all. He said, great. Let him alone. Whoever's not against us is for us. You know, I've had a club mentality when I was a little kid. I mean, I always kind of wanted to be, I always thought clubs were exclusive things, you know what I mean? That makes you feel important. Have you ever felt that way before? Yeah. I mean, when I was in grade school, maybe the 4th grade, my friend and my cousin started a club. And it was called, the acronym was GAS. GAS. And do you know what it stood for? Girls are stupid. Okay, now, of course, what a dumb thing, you know what I mean? And the whole thing fell apart after a couple days when my cousin actually gave in and started liking the girl across the street. I mean, it blew the whole thing apart. But you know, this whole idea of being exclusive is evil. It's part of having a pusillanimous soul. Can you say that? A pusillanimous soul. Yeah. And Jesus wants to rid the disciples of having a soul like that. Now, we just got through the easiest part of the gospel. Now we're going into the hardest part. You ready for this? You know, the game's not until a couple hours from now, so I can prolong this a little bit, right? Yeah? Wow. Jesus says, whoever causes one of these little ones, and your translation might say to sin. Actually, it's a bad translation. It's better to be scandalized, which means to trip up. Whoever causes one of these little ones to trip up. It would have been better for that person, before they would even do this, to have a millstone tied around his neck and be thrown into the sea. Does that sound serious to you? Yeah. A lot hangs on whether we have a magnanimous soul or a pusillanimous soul. First of all, what does it mean by little one? It doesn't necessarily mean children. Okay? However, in this context, in last week's readings, we do see Jesus going and taking a child, right? And saying, whoever receives this child receives me, and whoever receives me receives the Father. So there's children in the context. But the word could be broader than that. It could mean anyone who has a faith that's still fragile, that is not grounded. And whoever causes one of these to stumble, to trip up, to lose their faith is a serious business. Now, why would anybody want to cause a child to trip up and be an instrument of evil to a child? Well, the only answer I have here today is this. A pusillanimous soul takes. It's motivated by the evil of Satan, who, when they see innocence, when they see that which is beautiful, like in a child, their pusillanimous soul is envious and wants to take. And we see this, haven't we? This summer has been a miserable summer because we've seen that priests are pusillanimous. But there are people here in this congregation who may have had something stolen from them by a relative or someone close to them. And how in the world do we make our way back? You see, being caused to be tripped up. How do we make it? We can by the power of Jesus, but it's a long haul, isn't it? Now, Jesus says this. He says, listen, if you have a pusillanimous soul, you got to make it magnanimous. And you got to take radical measures. That means, what does Jesus say? Take a meat cleaver? I mean, no. I don't think he wants us to do this literally, so don't even think that that's what Jesus is saying. He is saying that we must take radical action in our lives and our souls to have a magnanimous soul. That is, you need to be the person who would rather be maimed than to hurt anybody else. Isn't that beautiful? That's a magnanimous soul. That's where Jesus wants us to be. A holy soul is a magnanimous soul. A holy soul is one who walks around them and everything around them flowers with goodness. Everything comes alive and people are empowered. They scatter diamonds and jewels everywhere they go. You can tell what a magnanimous soul looks like. On the other hand, a pusillanimous soul, everything's barren and scorched around it. So God, Jesus, right here, is challenging us. It's real. He's saying the consequences of this life are real. It's not pretty. He's challenging all of us. He wants us to be holy. He wants us to have a magnanimous soul. He wants you to be blessed and be a blessing to everyone.